Jack is sitting there in this 12-step workshop, and he's at the end, he says, "So Rick, you brought your big book with me." I had my original big book from treatment from 1988. It's leather bound, has all cross-referenced and underlined in red and pencil and yellow and so on. He says, "Read page 25, the 2 paragraphs starting with, 'There is a solution.' And if anybody is inclined to understand what AA is about, those 2 paragraphs sum up, there's a problem, addiction, alcoholism. There's a solution, then there's those 2 paragraphs." And for me, as I'm reading it, most of the way through the first paragraph, I feel the tears coming and get sort of choked up. And then at the beginning of the second paragraph, now I know the tears are starting to form and my cheeks are getting warm, and I look around and say, well, there's nobody here that I shouldn't cry in front of. So and then by the end of the second paragraph, I'm crying. I just can't, because it talks about the miracle of recovery, about the central fact and the main fact of God in our lives. It's a reality for so many of us. And we just spent 3 hours, all of us, reflecting on what recovery has meant for us and what it means to us today. And so we were in touch with all these miracles, all these blessings that we're all so very, very grateful for. That brought us together a great deal. Another way in which carrying the message to others has been so helpful to me, I think rarely have I failed to ask of the 85,000 people or so that I've detoxed, how are you doing spiritually? Just a simple question, how are you doing spiritually? A few people might say, what do you mean? And I'll say, well, do you have a sense of a higher power? Very quickly, though, people respond and they teach me about what they're seeing of the God of their understanding or their sense of a higher power. And from 80,000 plus responses, I've been blessed to see more broadly what this creation is about. I think I don't want to go too far off the rails with that, but it's really amazing hologram coming from tens of thousands of minds, how they perceive a higher power. And of course, we need a power greater than the addiction. The force of the addiction cannot be underestimated. It's amazing what is happening with people in addiction these days. It far surpasses what we would see 10 and 20 and 30 years ago. Yeah. It's just getting worse and worse and worse. And as you know, people are dying right and left. So it's urgent.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I've always sort of felt, and I may or may not be on base on this, is that there's an illusion of a connection to a higher power when people are under the influence to whatever degree. Whether it's even just shutting down the conversation, it's the illusion of peace. Some religions base their religion on substances and so forth to create this connection to a higher power. And it's so true in your experience with doing your meditation and being a Zen monk for a year or more. I mean, you're still a monk-like.
Well, there's that aspect to self. I mean, that's one aspect of self. Some substances do perhaps open the doors of perception, but it's not true. It's colored by substances, and it's brief and fleeting. And what was it? And nobody can remember afterwards.
Right.
Great insights. Smoking marijuana, writing them down, and then next day, what was that I was writing?
Yeah.
So what is true happens only in reality, the present reality, because that's all we have, and it happens only when you're walking on a path that leads to higher understanding.
Right.
And the wonderful thing about what Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob Smith brought to us is a design for living and a path that leads to higher understanding. So people have a spiritual awakening through time. Some have a spiritual experience abruptly. Not that many, but in either event, it's sufficient to offset the force of the addiction.
Right.
The biggest problem I see people making is announcing they got it all figured out and they know in their mind that they can beat the addiction because they just won't use it again or whatever. But they're trying to solve the problem with the same mind that got them entangled into the problem in the first place. And many of their neural networks or neurological pathways lead to the solution for any problem of, it's time to use. I should go get stoned. I got to get high.
Right.
I don't feel so good. I need relief. Let me, and so on. So they're really boxed in, and they need a way out. And they were going to call the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous A Way Out, but Bill Wilson took a look in the Library of Congress and saw that that would be the 13th book named A Way Out, and he had something about 12, the number 12, and he said, let's go with Alcoholics Anonymous.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.